welcome to folks as they are joining us on our webinar today. So glad that you are here. And I'm thrilled as people are joining here. Just introduce to you Mike Rosado. Mike is probably first and foremost thing you need to know about him is that Mike's just a friend. He's a good dude and gotten to know each other the last 2 or 3 years. And yeah, so it's been awesome having Mike as a friend and coworker. And as I thought, this is how this webinar came together was that we were having a conversation not too long ago and talking about AI, and we were just kind of talking about that, and we're like, hey, we should do a webinar,
Right.
and which is not like a foreign thing for you, Mike. I know you've done this before. This is not your first
Yeah.
rodeo, but I know it'd be helpful for those who are signing on. And hey, just want to let you know as you are joining on here, Rachel from our office. By the way, Rachel Bowen is the one who set this thing up. Big shout out to Rachel. This thing would not happen without her tech
Woo.
savviness. So thank you so much, Rachel. But she's throwing a poll up there that would help us if you would just give us a little bit of the lay of land. How often, so AI use in your church, how often do your office utilize AI tools? If you can just participate in that poll, that would be fantastic as we get going here. That would be so super helpful and getting a little bit of an idea of how much experience you have. And if you have no experience, that's totally cool. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're joining in on this because you're going to learn some great stuff from Mike along the way. And also, as you are listening to Mike and I have this conversation, you may have a question that pops into your mind along the way that you'd love to ask. Feel free to ask that question in the chat section, and we'll keep an eye on that. Rachel, keep an eye on that, and we'll make sure that we get a chance to um, get as many of these questions answered as possible. I'm going to shut my door here because I got a dog barking outside. And Rachel, do we have any kind of results from that poll before we get going here? Because I know that'd be helpful as we get going here. You can pop that up. All right,
Yes, here you go.
all
All
right.
right.
Thanks, Rich. All right, so yeah, we got everything from nope, not using it to yeah. It's like we're all kind of middle of the road, just starting out. So
Right.
that'd be perfect. That's helpful.
Good. Good. So no
Mike,
one's
is
a
that is
professional, so nobody's going to correct me along the way, which I like. That's good.
Oh, we can't guarantee that.
We
I
can't
might.
guarantee that.
um, hey, I know we want to get to sort of the practical uses of AI, but Mike, you and I were having this conversation before. Anytime there's a technological advance, I think within the church there's a bit of well, I think one of the filters we use in accessing that technological advance is, hey, is it okay to do this?
Right.
Am I going to get in trouble with Jesus if I do this? I mean, that goes all the way back to electricity, to movies, to I mean, I remember back in the day when it was even music,
Right.
what instruments were permissible. But talk to us about the theological implications of AI in the church and church ministry as for pastors.
Yeah. I think I'll explain what my personal theological perspective is on it. But like with a lot of things, it's a tool. And if you approach it with some people always go to the extreme or of overusing it and then the extreme of never using it. So I like to propose like a kind of like a hybrid type of model. And what I mean by that is here, I got a slide for this. So like to develop a balanced approach that suggests using AI to augment rather than replace human efforts, ensuring that personal and spiritual aspects of ministry are preserved. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what we want to capture. That's what we want to preserve there. But so establishing ethical guidelines. So before you even go into this route, I'll talk about, making sure that you get a policy in place to that relates to concerns related to privacy, consent, intention, and misuse. Um, and also, this stuff changes so fast. So to regularly assess the impact of AI on ministry practice and make adjustments as needed. When Steve asked me to do this, um, I rewrote this webinar like 4 times because like things just kept on changing. And so this is something that it's not just one and done because it changes so rapidly. We kind of constantly have to reassess it. But to get to the biblical stuff, I'm going to send everyone also a copy of our ethical guideline policy for AI that Fervent Churches uses. And I'm giving you complete permission to copy, steal it, change it up, make it your own. Yeah, because we worked on it and embedded into it is just a sense of constant evaluation from our board. So I want us to get to a place of look at AI as an assistant. So to answer your question, Steve, like I think if you use AI as an assistant, it helps us do more human things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So remember that time where the disciples were like, yeah, we're spread too thin. We need help. And that's where they started developing deacons, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like if you use AI as an assistant, and so biblically speaking, all throughout scripture, we see people empowering assistants, right? So, Jeremiah 36:4, where we talk about Jeremiah actually used someone he dictated the words, and the words that were spoken to him, this guy wrote down on a scroll, right? Jeremiah had
Mm-hmm.
an assistant. All these guys had assistants. Paul had an assistant. Peter had an assistant, right? So, some of you who are familiar with that, you just read this kind of like the beginning of certain books, First Corinthians 1 and Second Thessalonians 1. These guys had assistants. Like this is not
Mm-hmm.
a brand new thing. So for me, if you keep AI as an assistant, then that keeps everything in perspective. And I think it locks us in theologically to say, hey, even the people who wrote scripture had assistants. Ministry needs assistance. And to be good stewards of time, right? Another biblical thing is that life is a vapor. We're here one
Mm.
day and gone tomorrow, right? So I want to be able to steward this time well. And there's a study about McKinsey and Company. They suggest that automation technologies, including AI, can save 20 to 40% of time administrative tasks such as scheduling, data entry, and communication management. So let me quickly tell you this. So sermon prep time, right? So all the pastors that are watching, sermon prep time. Traditionally, most of you take about 10 to 15 hours a week, right? How many hours did you spend on sermon prep, Steve?
I mean, I would do a study week. I would try and get away and write as many talks as I could
Right,
just
that's
so
on
I could be present. But yeah, I mean, you're not, when I first started, I think it was like my entire week. I would just stare
the
at
entire week. Yeah.
my text. I mean, when I was first starting out, I remember Tim Heffer's on here. I used to
Uh-huh.
call Tim and go, dude, what do I say? I can't, he was my assistant. He was
Yeah.
back in the day pre AI. But yeah, I mean, I think that 10 to 20.
Yeah.
Um,
So think about it. If we start leveraging AI well, you the 10 to 15 to 10 to 20 with AI assistance, you could cut it down to 5 to 7 hours a week. And so we just have a 50% reduction in time. Again, AI efficiency so that we could do more human things. Same thing with administrative stuff. So if you're an administrator here, you talk about the traditional method is 20 hours a week. With some AI stuff, you could do 12 to 16. The time saved there could go anywhere between 20 to 40% reduction. Communication, same thing. It's about 10 hours a week. You can narrow it down to 5 to 7, save some time there. Because then what does that leave left? It leaves more space for you to do inner work and soul care, right? More space for you to do mentorship and coaching, more space to do you to do storytelling. I think the church used to be really good at testimonies and everything like that, but like we're so busy with everything else, we forgot storytelling, we forgot creating content that not only imparts but also stories and testimonies that inspire, so inspirational, and then we could actually, with that extra time that we have, start new outreach initiatives and start experimenting with some things in that
yeah.
regard. So yeah, that's for me, that's the theological my theological response to everything, that if you treat it as an assistant, it creates more space for us to do some damage and good for the kingdom of God.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that even as I'm listening to you talk, I mean, back in the day, some are probably on that used commentaries a lot when you were
Hmm.
prepping for a sermon, and
Right.
the commentaries were a sermon, but I mean, were assistant to writing a sermon, but obviously, you didn't just basically regurgitate what the commentary said. You used it
Right.
to help you then as you're listening. I think it was Kelvin Walker who say there are people who say something, and then there are people who have something to say. So the prophetic voice
Yeah.
still
Yes.
needs to. be
Right.
heard. So,
Right.
I mean, you threw some stuff up there about sermon prep and how to cut that down and all that. I think probably what we'd be interested in is when it comes to communicating or analyzing results from surveys and doing all that kind of stuff. Let's get into the practical stuff here pretty quick. And by the way, I didn't do a very good job introducing Mike. Mike is an ordained minister with the CNMA. He's in South Jersey. He's at Fervent Church, multi-site church, and Mike is an innovator and has done a great job of not just innovating in the local church ministry context, but he's merged churches. Some of that has gone well. Some of that has
Some
been
of that.
challenging for.
Yeah.
But you're an innovator. You're someone that people nationally look to, want to hear from when it comes to this topic. So just in case you're wondering, Mike is family, and I love the angle he brings to this conversation. So, Mike, talk to us then about the practical ways as some of us are pastors, some are admin assistants, some are worship pastors. Lead us forward in this conversation.
Yeah. So, I don't want to skip that. So, in regards to like the way churches are going, I'm really passionate about this because like when it comes to church life cycles, you might have heard churches that are incline, recline, and decline. This is from a study by a guy named Dr. Ken Pretty. And just at the very top left, I don't want to spend too long on this, but if you know, a church on the incline is future oriented. And so I want us to be future oriented. So before we move on, here's the big principle. The big principle is be AI efficient with human eyes, and like Steve just said, spiritual discernment, right? You could have a very well done sermon, and for Steve, you could correct me later if this is not appropriate language, but and the preacher can still suck, right? Or people, or it's not receiving, the audience not receiving it well. Why? Because like I think without that human touch, that spiritual discernment, that breath of God on it, it's not going to work, right? So let's make sure that we keep that in mind when we talk about certain things. So I think Rachel's going to put up another poll right now. Like, tell me what language model software you currently use. Um, so some of you are already familiar with ChatGPT or Google Bard, Claude, Perplexity, or any other one. I'd love to see, like, for those who are using it a little bit, which one are you currently using? Um, and then I'm going to share with you a list of stuff that, as a pastor, I use, as a church, we use. Um, and I'm also going to hook you up with a discount code for one of these companies that we use, that they were able to bless us. And no, I do not make any money off of it. Steve doesn't either. This is just to bless you with it. Um, so let me wait and see what your choices are. Which one do you primarily use, Steve?
I mean, I use Chat GPT. I mean, even we were laughing earlier because I actually use Chat GPT to determine what are good questions to ask when you're having a webinar with pastors about AI, and it generated some really good questions. And I shot them to Mike, and he thought I was really smart, but then he knew better. Um,
Then I knew better, right? Right.
I probably use ChatGPT, and then I've used Oasis, which is an app. I mean, little things like you got little stuff like Grammarly um, that use AI now, but those are probably the two main ones because I'm using the app Oasis for emails.
Yeah.
What about you?
Good. I'll show you. I'm gonna give you a whole list of all the stuff that I use. But let's see the results. What's the audience? What does the audience use right now? A lot of people use ChatGPT. If you submitted other, put in the chat right now which one do you use if you don't use Bard, Claude, or Perplexity. I would love to hear that. Midjourney, yep, Midjourney AI generation, Julius. Yep, those are good ones. Um, well, cool. Here's what I use, okay? Or what we use as a church. So we use ChatGPT, and that's for like writing, brainstorming, Claude, writing, brainstorming, but also data analysis. I'll give you an example of that later. We use something called Rimini.ai, which is an image enhancement. Now, later on, Rachel's going to send everybody these slides, so you don't have to necessarily write these all down. But we use, Fervent Church uses Adobe Firefly to use text to image generation. We use CapCut. And what CapCut allows us to do is it enhances some of our videos and does auto captioning. Um, and then we use Grammarly. I know Steve, you use Grammarly.
Yep.
Um, uh, I use Motion. It kind of helps automate some of my calendar and task stuff. And then Pulpit.ai. Okay. So I'm going to shoot through some of these really quickly. So Rimini is kind of cool here. Rimini is a service that we use because we have a preschool at our church. So preschool teachers, they take pictures of the kids, and sometimes not everyone takes the best pictures. So I'm going to use my little picture of my boy Benny here. Um, and what we do is we upload it to Rimini, and Rimini uses AI to enhance the photo. So to the left, you see the before, so it's kind of blurry. And as I slide it over, you see like the picture gets a little clearer. And it has a couple of little filters on the left. So on his beauty filter, I'm just going to put more natural. I'm going to hit apply. And then now you could see when I go back and forth, you see the difference, how clear his face is. So now that's more Instagram ready. So that's what we use Rimini for. And then we use Firefly for text generation. And this is pretty cool because, again, I'm going to talk a little bit about prompts, but it's really important to utilize prompts really, really well. And what we did is we create an image. And in our policy, we believe that, again, a church conviction is that people connect to people. So we could create graphics, but we try our best not to use AI generated people because we believe that then that's not authentic. When I did this webinar the other day, some people were like, hey, um, when you use AI, it's not authentic, right? If you use AI, and I said, I hear you. But again, our goal is efficiency while still trying to be authentic. So when it comes to people, we want to make sure that we put real people on it, but we can use AI generated graphics. So for example, you can see on the bottom, you have like a prompt there, and the prompt is really, really important. It's right there on the bottom. I highlighted it with a red box there. That's what you put in. So notice what I wrote. I wrote for this image that I wanted, hey, from behind. So I wanted the perspective to be from behind. I want a white man on his knees praying in a rainforest with sun rays beaming through the branches of the tree in a realistic photo style. Okay. So I know you can't read the prompt, but I'm reading it out loud here. So the the real important thing is about the prompt more than anything. And so when we did that, we were able to create series graphics and things like that. So here's an example of a series we just started last Sunday. So what I told it to do was, hey, I wanted metallic looking balloons to spell out the word praise on a string, the backdrop of the sky with clouds. And then our photographer gave me this image of myself that we kind of, just cut out and put on top. And now this is our YouTube thumbnail that we put utilizing both the combination hybrid of AI and actual real people. Then we also
And
use
and
CapCut. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and again, what was that? Well, that was Firefly.
That was Firefly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Adobe Firefly. Um, and then CapCut is a video editing thing. And only reason we use this is CapCut does what we call auto tracking. So it'll take a horizontal video and make it vertical. Um, and then the most time saving part is that it actually captions the video automatically for you. So nobody's sitting there typing every word out. It captures the video for you. And this cut out at least 2 hours of our video editing when it comes to us making reels for, online and so forth. So the software that I want to kind of pitch to you guys is a software called Pulpit.ai. So watch this promo and I'm going to show you how we as a church use it.
What if your Sunday sermon could disciple your church all week long? Pulpit AI helps busy pastors and church teams unlock new ways to disciple, communicate with, and reach their congregation and local community. Simply upload an audio, video, or text file of your sermon, and within minutes, get 20 plus pieces of content ready to publish. That's reels, devotionals, small group guides, discussion questions, social media captions, blog posts, newsletters, and more, all in your voice. Save hours a week on publishing. Automatically find chapters, timestamps, transcripts, keywords, and written summaries of your sermon ready to go. Use our chat interface to create before you preach. Simply upload your manuscript or notes to create content, refine points, get feedback, and iterate. Let your sermon be the content your people feed on all week long. Pulpit AI for everything after the sermon.
That's
So here's
awesome.
how we use it. This is our version of it, and so I'm going to show you the sermon I just preached on Sunday. What it does is it gives you a complete summary of the sermon that you can use for anything, and you could copy it and paste it wherever you want. Then and I love it that it gives us chapters, that we actually utilize these chapters to put chapters on our YouTube video. It derives all the points from your sermon, all the scriptures utilized in the sermon. So see, I'm not heretical, Steve. I use a lot of scripture. Um, then you have all these, it pulls out your quotables that you could possibly use for social media, and then it transcribes the whole entire sermon for you. But for us, the most important thing is right here, this panel to the right, where discipleship, it has discussion questions, a small group guide that it builds automatically for you based off your sermon, and even devotionals. So it gives you 5-day devotionals based on your sermon that are already written for you. And obviously, you need human eyes to discern and see if you want to change anything. It gives you social media posts, and then also communication verbiage for email recap, and then a blog post. Now, not that alone saves you enough time, but here's the cool part. Then it has a chat feature where you could ask your sermon a question. And what I mean by that is, let's just say, I want to ask it to, hey, create youth group discussion questions for middle school aged students and high school students. And then you don't have to give it any other prompt, since it's basically basing everything on your sermon. It pulls that and makes it a little more palatable for high school students and middle school students. So you could use it that way, or you could actually use it to make you a better preacher. So if you click on that coach tab, you can see, how could I increase brevity? How could I improve the storytelling elements in my sermon and make it more relatable? Or to iterate stuff. Hey, could this be an actual series? Can I create a series from this content? Can I update the sermon for reuse in a different context or season? So that if you start utilizing it a lot more, it gives you the opportunity to even become a better preacher from sermon to sermon, right? So it could actually be your preaching coach if you want it to be. So we absolutely love this. So that's why I contacted the CEO. I said, hey, I'm doing a couple webinars. I would love to promote your item if you give us a discount code. And so I arm wrestled him and I got you that discount code. So here it is. So if you write this down, Rachel, you can put this on the chat. You use Founder20 at checkout, and you get 20% off your first year of usage. Okay, 20% off your first year of usage.
Now, that's Pulpit AI.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Because
And
the slide, just FYI for people who watch it, it says Pulpit AL on the slide. Just make sure Mike didn't run that through AI.
Yeah, I did.
Come on, come on. Yeah, Scotty put it up there for us.
You got it. You got it.
Pulpitai.com.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
20% off for what, like, without a discount code, what's that costing per year? Do you know off your head?
I don't know off the top of my head. No.
Okay, so obviously it's gonna save you a chunk on that first year. Get
Yeah,
a
yeah,
chance to
yeah,
use it.
yeah.
If you're trying to create Bible studies off of a sermon series you're doing, this is a great tool to
100%.
be like the devotionals afterwards to keep people kind of chewing on it. That's, man, what an awesome
Right. Yeah. And
tool.
and think
So
about it. And think about it. You guys, you used to spend, hopefully as you start using AI, you get better. You used to spend 15 to 20 hours a week on a sermon prep, and that sermon only has a shelf life of 1 day, right? So what would it look like if you expanded that a little bit and leveraged it more for discipleship throughout the week?
yeah,
That's how we use it. So we love it. And so I'm not just selling you something that we don't use it or just to show off. Like, we use this every single week, and it's worth every dime for it. Thanks, Scott, for putting up the price. So I think there's different levels. So $39, $59, and $29. But it's worth every dime. We use it, and we're proud to use it. So anyway, so now that's just showcasing what we do and how we utilize it. But I think the most important thing is that AI moves so quickly that I wanted to give you guys something that you could just continue using as you continue to explore AI. And I think it's the power of a prompt. Okay. So that's what I really want to get into, to how to teach you guys how to leverage AI and harness AI in ministry. So when you're developing a prompt, so what is a prompt? Some of you don't know that a prompt is a specific instruction or question you give to an AI system to guide its response. Okay. The more clear and detailed your prompt is, the more helpful and accurate the AI's response will be. Okay. So Steve gave us a great example already. So Steve, when you were asking it what questions to ask me, what did you first put in? Can you share with everyone?
Yeah, I first put in, hey, what are great questions to ask when you're doing a webinar on AI?
And then what
Um,
happened?
I got questions for healthcare, for education, context, governmental and I was like, oh my gosh! And it was Chat GPT, so it was just like it was just
Yeah, yeah,
loading.
yeah.
It kept going, going, going because it was giving me everything. And
Yeah.
then I hit pause and like, yeah, I got to narrow the scope of this prompt,
Narrow the scope. Right,
and I
right,
narrowed it to for pastors
right.
and for
So
people working in churches.
so many of my pastor friends that are still, late to the game with this stuff, like they try it once and they do something like what you did, and they go, "Ah, I don't like it. It didn't give me what I want." And I said, it's just like the body, man. Garbage in, garbage out. So like the more specific you are, the more you practice it, the better responses it's going to give you. It's not going to read your mind, right? And so you have to pay attention to what you're inputting. So I think the prompts are very, very important. So if you might have heard of SMART goals. Has anyone heard of SMART goals, right? When you talk about SMART goals, and I want to use this as a framework for the prompts because I think it's going to be more memorable that way. SMART goals. What is a SMART goal? Something that has to be specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time bound. So if you take that, we're going to borrow that acronym and say this is going to be our framework for developing prompts. Okay. So think about it before you, as you're typing these prompts, and trust me, you'll get better at it. And then I'm going to give you another tip to get more efficient with it. Is be specific, be clear about what you're asking. Also, include something that's measurable, include something quantifiable when it's possible. Include something actionable. So frame the prompt to elicit useful responses. Okay. I'm gonna give you an example of this, but I just want you to get this acronym down. SMART. Also, make it relevant. Ensure that the prompt relates directly to the ministry task. Okay. So tell it why am I doing this? Why is this relevant? And then also time bound. So include time restraints or the context when it's appropriate, seasons, those kind of things. It's really, really important. So we want smart framework to develop prompts. Okay. So here's the pitfalls to avoid when you're developing a prompt: vague or overly broad prompts. Okay. Also, don't ask it for personal opinions or theological matters. Most of the time, it says it's not going to give you that, right? Because it's there's certain limitations that it tries its best not to create bias towards one thing or another. Or then relying too heavily on AI for sensitive pastoral issues. Again, we cannot replace the spirit. Okay, we cannot replace the spirit. So that's where you could blame the tool or you could blame yourself in regards to these pitfalls. So avoid those if possible. Remember SMART. Okay. So I want to give you some things. All right. Hopefully you can see this is big. And again, I'm gonna send you a copy of our policy, a PDF of all these slides, and a PDF of the cheat. I'm gonna call it a prompt cheat sheet. So you're gonna get all these prompts. But I want to give you some stuff. I've done a lot of this work for you, but this is what I have taught some other pastors to use for sermon prep. Okay, so all the preachers pay attention. So this is a prompt, a predetermined prompt that you could leverage and you could change. All right. You don't have to like keep these. You could change and make it your own thing. But um, this is the prompt that I use. So, and I kept this and I copy and paste it every single time. So this is what it says. Provide a detailed outline for everything that's in yellow is what you're going to replace. So this is me being smart in regards to my prompt. So I'll say, provide a detailed outline for. Now, notice I said outline. All right. I do not want to leverage AI to write my sermons, right? Because it's not going to be spirit. It's not going to be spirit led. Um, and for me, my personal conviction is that I just don't want to do that. So provide a detailed outline for a length, say 30-minute sermon on specific Bible passage or theme. Okay. Then for a target audience, congregation, and then include. And then this is what I'm telling AI. I'm telling, hey, I want a clear main message or thesis statement. And then I'm going to replace the yellow number and say, the second thing I wanted to do is give me blank key points that support the main message. So let's just say 3 key points that support the main message. I want at least 3 relevant Bible verses or passages for each key point. I want um, maybe 1 to 2 real life applications or examples for each key point, a compelling introduction and conclusion, and a number of thought-provoking questions for the congregation to reflect on. My last part of that prompt is the sermon should address the theme of, again, I state the specific theme or issue, right? So in this instance, I'm preaching on the topic called "This is Praise." So we're doing a deep theological on what is actual biblical praise when we talk about it. But the sermon should address the issue of, and I'm attacking apathy in our worship. Okay, so that's what I'm putting there. Apathy in our worship, and be appropriate for the church season or special occasion. So in this instance, I'm like, it's the end of the summer. We're trying to create some momentum going into the fall. So that's what I'm putting in there. And in alignment to denomination beliefs. Okay, so I put there Christian and Missionary Alliance, right? If you put any other denomination, you're wrong. I'm kidding. Um, but just to keep it theologically aligned with your beliefs, and then please structure the outline to be delivered within the next, and then you put a time frame and include suggestions for any visual aid or interactive element that could enhance the message. Whoa, Mike, that's a lot, right? So how many of you are overwhelmed with that? But think about it. If you copy and paste it and just learn every single week to replace the blanks, it'll generate this well-crafted outline that'll be a huge springboard and launch pad for you to write a killer sermon on something that God has already put in your heart. Does that make sense? So that's just using a prompt. Some of you, you might just, and I've had to grow in this and I continue to use it. Some of you might just put, I want to write a sermon on depression using this verse. And you'll get something okay. But I'll get more, when you utilize crafted, smart prompts, you'll get more of what you want and you'll get more efficient at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, balance attention here for me, because
Yeah.
as I'm watching you go through this, I remember, I mean, when I was first crafting talks, that if I went to a commentary or then when you get Google available to you and you start give away my age here, pre-internet.
Pre-internet. Yeah.
When I got someone else's ideas in my head, it actually limited my ability to listen well, because I
Yeah.
got this idea. And then do you, I mean, how is that for you? Because I mean, I could see doing something like that after I've looked at the text and I've given some thought.
Right.
Do you check and balance, like, hey, what am I missing by doing something? I mean, what I'm asking here.
Yeah. I think, but that's why it's important. I try my best to, as I continue to develop this, I try my best to like, the thought or the idea or the theme or the main verses that I'm using
Mm-hmm.
is something that I got from my time with the Lord. Okay.
Right.
So it's not just write a sermon for me. Like I'm inputting it. I just need help with the structure and the skeleton. So I'm
Gotcha.
going to start off being spiritual, hearing from the Lord. I need some AI help in the middle just to create the framework. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going to go back and fill in the framework with my own personal anecdotes, what the Lord and the Holy Spirit is showing me. Um, and then I'm saturating it in prayer. You know,
Yeah.
so this is not replacing prayer. This is allowing you to do more human stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the Lord, that kind of thing. But imagine having an assistant. So again, don't think about it as ones and zeros, a computer doing it for you. Think about it like almost personify it as a person. Imagine if you had a research assistant. Hey, in my private time with the Lord's really put in my heart, this verse, this text, this story in scripture. This is kind of the main theme I want to drive with. Help me research some other background things, and you let that person run and go do the research,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And come
That's
back.
great.
So look at it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
no, no, I know you. I know that's how you use it, and I'm just thinking that some of us are like, for me personally, if I get someone else's idea in my head, then it's hard to get that idea out, so I can
for
actually
sure.
listen. So you're going to have to know your as you write and as you prep. I mean, again, AI is a research assistant. When do you need that research? When does it work best for you in your own spiritual discernment? So you retain your prophetic voice
Yes.
through the process. So yeah.
100%. And we can't emphasize that enough. It's two things. So this issue isn't new, right?
Hmm.
Even in the 90s and 80s, people were stealing other people's sermons, right? So and actually, so a big preacher recently, just last week, got caught literally stealing somebody's sermon line for line, even like the personal stories and everything. And in my head, I'm like, dude, you're like a very well-known preacher. Like you had to know that you were going to get caught doing this, especially with all the video stuff out there. But people do it all the time. I know there's a large church around here that they continue just using Craig Groeschel's sermons right off of his website because he allows people to do that. But there's something about it if you watch those sermons that sometimes it's missing something, right? And so that's the difference maker. I think it's the God breathed moment. So you just, again, going back to using it as an assistant or having someone brainstorm. So, like, if I have a main text and a main theme and a main verse, there are times like when I'll be honest, like I'm listening to Steve preach and he uses this one line from a one verse. I'm like, ooh, that fits really good in my sermon, right? So I'm gonna borrow that, right? It's the same thing. It's
Hmm.
the same
Hmm.
thing as you're listening. You
Yep.
you were pregnant already with the main theme and the main verse, but now there's going to be you're going to supplement other verses within the message just to give it more theological depth.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And we're talking a lot about preaching, and obviously that's one way to use AI. Have you used AI to leverage outreach?
Out,
Um,
outreach and counseling. So again, I'm going to put these prompts in a cheat sheet, but
okay.
this when I figured this out, I was like, whoa, and I started helping all of our small group leaders use this just to help them
Hmm.
because I tell them your job is not to counsel, like, you know what I mean, like we can give counsel but you're not some people are just that's not their mantle to carry. You're not a counselor,
Hmm.
but sometimes they find themselves in these moments where they have to kind of walk people through some issues. So I developed a prompt for that. So here's a counseling meeting prep prompt. Okay. So watch this. I'll go through this quickly, but anything that's yellow, that's what you change. So watch what I tell AI. And again, we're not substituting the Holy Spirit. We're not substituting holy touch here. Listen to what it says. It says, hey, provide a structured approach for a duration. So you put the duration, say, hey, I'm going to talk to this guy for an hour, for an hour pastoral counseling session with a age group, gender that you're dealing with a specific issue. Say they're dealing with pornography, right? So include number of open-ended questions to assess the individual situation, number of biblical principles relevant to the issue, number of practical coping strategies or exercises, a framework for and you put the duration, let's say a 60-day action plan to address the issue. Give me about 3 resources, books, support groups, or professional service to recommend, and then guidance on how to follow up after 2 weeks. Consider, and then I put the person's bio almost in there. Consider the individual's religious background, right? So say I'm helping this person out. So in that portion, I would say, they're just new to the faith. They really don't know. All they know is that Jesus saved them, and that's it, right? So religious background and cultural context, right? Hey, you know what? They're a minority, and they used to, their families used to go to an all mono ethnic church, and now they're in a part of our church. I put something like that in there, and the approach should be sensitive to specific consideration. Hey, he's also in between jobs and align with our denominations or church's teachings on whatever the relevant doctrine and provide suggestions for creating a safe and comfortable environment for the counseling session, right? So people take this prompt, copy and paste, plug in the things, and then now they're ready with 5 questions, Bible verses that they could utilize. And they might not use them, but they have them now in their back pocket to be ready to counsel individuals. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Same
Yep.
thing with outreach, right? So Steve and I, we do peak coaching, right? So shout out to Peak for a second. And we do this thing called CGI. And what CGI is the session is where your critical gospel impact. And it's a session where we sit down with the church and we have them list all their ministries and also list all of their community urgent needs of the community, right? And we want to help these churches see where do their ministries actually intersect with the needs of their community, right? And then we also kind of talk about what are there some unique giftings or resources that the churches have. So I got crafty, and after maybe 15 minutes, I created this prompt, leveraging AI and leveraging all the data from that session, and I give it to churches now. So I say this, hey, just put this in AI. Our churches have the following unique qualities and resources. So they list 3 unique qualities, and our community is currently facing these urgent needs. Give me 2 to 3 urgent needs and say, we want our outreach to have the following impact, right? So you put in what the impact. So the rest of the prompt says this, says, and based on this information, generate 5 innovative outreach ideas that leverage our church's strengths to address the community needs and achieve our desired impact. For each idea, provide a brief description of the outreach activity, how it utilizes the church's unique qualities and resources, which community needs it address, how it contributes to our desired impact, and potential challenges and how to overcome them. I just did this with a Haitian church in North New Jersey, and they were blown away. At least actually 4 out of the 5 ideas that AI gave them were stuff that they never thought of,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so this is the power of, and it didn't matter if they were using Bard, Claude, ChatGPT. The art of crafting appropriate prompts really helps you out a lot when it comes to getting what you want out of AI.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant because for some of us, you're trying to just studying your community and getting some of those ideas and being able to know what to do with them. In contrast to who you are as a church, is just, it's just a home run. So that's and so you use that in a Haitian church. Any other churches have you done it in any other church settings, ethnic churches or?
Yeah, I use it in our church. Outside of our denomination, I helped a Vietnamese church down a couple of towns over, leverage something like that. They didn't go through the peak process, but I was like, they were just stuck on how do I leverage AI, or how to actually, they didn't even mention AI, where they were trying to, they don't have any idea on how to impact their Vietnamese community where they are outside of Philadelphia. And I was like, hey, have you considered doing this? So I sent them this prompt. The guy used it and his mind was blown by it. And
That's
again,
awesome.
you can't just take it as it is, afterwards, after you get those ideas, take it back to your team, pray about it, and let the Holy Spirit help you discern through what's the next step. And if anything, it's a good brainstorming process.
Yeah, no, it's just those prompts. When you make it that simple, like you put in that data, like you said, with the SMART goal framework, it just, just produces, because we all know it's like garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yep.
Depending on what's out there, is that they're just drawing from a pool of information. So the better you can refine your prompts, the much better information you're going to get back. And you could probably even use AI to help you study what the needs of your community are.
Absolutely.
You could craft a prompt if you don't have the resources at hand, like, hey, what are the urgent needs? What are the urgent community needs in, fill in the blank of the city.
Yeah.
And, give me 3, that have in these last 12 months. Basically, just kind of keeps your finger on the pulse. There's another way to use AI in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. One time with the church, I said, hey, let's pull out Claude, because Claude for free allows you to upload files. So you use Claude, and they had they got from their district, I don't know what you guys call it in your district, but mission insight reports. Yeah. So the mission insight, so it's the demographic of their community. So they uploaded that along with here's a couple outreach programs that we have. And then they asked AI, hey, generate 10 ideas connecting our programs that we currently have with the demographics stated in the file that I just uploaded. Boom. It gave them 10 ideas.
Hmm.
Right.
That's awesome.
So I
Yeah, and
suggest
that
like even getting used to like in a staff meeting or in a brainstorming meeting or a planning meeting, have one or two people and use different AIs, right? To have one or two people on their laptops, on their iPads, you leveraging AI in any type of brainstorming or planning session.
yeah, fantastic. And that mission insight report is not a very small report either. So it's
No,
processing a lot of information for you. So let's just say you're doing admin support, and talk to us more about how do I help and my own productivity efficiency at work using AI, if I'm in an admin position.
for sure. So I'm gonna
The reason
share.
reason I'm asking is that, I mean,
Yeah,
it isn't just for the admin folks who are on this webinar, but as we're coaching people to be assistants and to be more effective in what they do, AI can help us with that too.
yeah. So I wish my wife was here. My wife was she utilizes AI for just brainstorming quicker ways to do admin, right? So we just had on Sunday we had a team fair, right? So this is a big fair that we do every year. It's just kind of get people hyped up to sign up for ministry teams at our church. And so this is what she wrote on one of her prompts here. She said, let me pull this up. Um, she asked for a follow-up system. Let me pull it up. Give me 1 second. Yeah, she asked for a follow-up system. So after people sign up, uh, a solid follow-up system that allowed people to be able to sign up, to train, and they gave her step-by-step. Here it is. So this is what she asked. She literally said, this is her prompt. We're having a ministry fair to get more volunteers on our teams. They will be signing up on a form, and I need help figuring out a system of how to get them from signing up to training and then serving as quickly as possible. So it gave her a sign up process, a detailed sign up process. It categorizes the volunteers. It created an immediate follow up process, training process, final steps to serving, ongoing communication, and so forth. And then a follow up question is, what's the best way to introduce this to my team leaders so they could follow the follow up system? And then it prompted her to create a Google spreadsheet that she printed out and had them ready to um, to follow up with these people. So you see something like that, like if you let your admin assistants use it as their admin assistant, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just need help brainstorming or how to make something more efficient. Another way is that I wanted to create an evaluation for churches to see where they are in the life cycle, like like what I showed you earlier, whether they're incline, recline, or decline. Um, and I know I'm a visionary, so I know what I want it to look like. I know, um, how I want it to feel, how I want it to work, but I'm not a coder at all. But what I did was like, hey, I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, utilizing Jotform, which is a familiar form building service, utilizing Jotform, I want to create this. Give me step-by-step instruction on how to create that. And then it spit out the instructions. And now I created an evaluation that I give to other churches to help me administer them better and have them have more of an awareness of where they are in the life cycle, right?
Mm.
So thinking of things like that, our discipleship leader, they wanted to make a spiritual gifting survey, but wanted to make it different than everything that was out there. They did the exact same thing, I think they utilized Google Forms. Utilizing Google Forms, so you tell it what you're using, give me step-by-step instructions. This is how I want it to look. This is how I want it to feel. Help me make it happen. And it does it, right? So all administrative people, you don't have to be a coder or a professional programmer to create efficient things for your church to accomplish the stuff that you want.
Yeah, great. And what platform were you using for? You're talking about some of the admin, the stuff that Jillian was using. What platform was she using
She was
again?
using ChatGPT.
Oh, ChatGPT. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
ChatGPT. Yeah, a lot
Great.
of it's real simple and it's there. Um, a couple of things I want to say is that so I talked to you about this. I think it's really important that as you start utilizing AI, whether it be admin, outreach, counseling, preaching, here's a couple tips. Ask it to ask you. It's conversational, right? So say actually in creating that outreach prompt, I told it, hey, I'm a church coach. We do this session. I want you to ask me a series of questions to help me create a prompt so that I could do this faster in the future. And then it started asking me questions, right? So it'll teach you how to talk to it, right? Don't you wish your spouse did that? Come on, somebody. You heard that, Jill? Um, right? It'll
No,
teach you how to
no
talk to it.
comment. No
No
comment.
comment. Oh, it'll teach you how to talk to it. And then make sure that you always ask follow-up questions, like ask to clarify and expand on a specific point, tailor the information, those kind of things. Add depth to the initial response, address potential challenges or objections. Hey, I hear you on this point, but what about these objections that I'm going to have when I'm preaching this or I'm trying to accomplish this? Incorporate practical applications or exercises. Hey, I want them to talk to people about the gospel. How can you implement that? And connect the topic to biblical principles or contemporary stuff that's happening nowadays, right? That's a great tip to implement. So here's an example of that, like when I talk about follow-up questions. So say your initial prompt was, hey, give me ideas for a youth group activity on the topic of peer pressure, right? It gives you an answer. Possible follow-up questions could be, how can we modify this activity to be more engaging for middle school students specifically? Or what are some discussion questions we could use to debrief after activity? Can you suggest ways to incorporate social media themes with this activity to make it more relevant? You see how like you're treating it more I think if you get used to I know it feels weird, especially if you're not used to using it. You want just a quick answer. But in the beginning, you have to learn to have a dialogue with it. And then your answers will get quicker as it learns you and you learn it. So make sure you follow up questions. And at the end of the day, after you do have a full blown discussion with AI, whether it's everybody listen to this part because this is the key point today. If you heard anything, hear this. After every discussion that you have, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Bard, whatever one, this applies to everyone. At the end of the discussion, I ask it to create a prompt to get to the results that we just came up with. Okay. So that then I have this file, this Google Doc that I copy and paste all of these prompts, categorize them so that next time I don't have to have that full discussion. I just utilize this prompt and get to what I want a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the gold of this whole session right now. Like if you guys could understand that after you wrestle with it, like don't waste the wrestling. Like ask it to create a prompt, copy, paste, save it. So that when you go back to it again and you have to apply it to a different scenario or different situation, you could just plug and play that prompt and you could get what you want quicker.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes total sense. That's kind of bookending the whole conversation on AI. Just what you learn. Hey, I don't know if we answered this question. There's one question. I know you're going to send us your AI policy that you developed for Fervent.
Mhm.
Someone did ask, what are the key points do you recommend including an AI policy for your church? I mean, was a certain framework that you work with? Did you get that policy off of AI? How did you get that, Mike?
I saw somebody else, another church. So I didn't ask AI to do it. I saw another church have it, and I took it, and then I evolved it a lot just to fit in our context. So, to answer your question, what I included in it was to make sure that there's an alignment to your values, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for us, we have a very diverse community here. So for us, we wanted to be very clear on our policy of inclusion and making sure that there's no bias towards, um, marginalized people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we included that. Um, So I think the big thing is, alignment to your values, alignment to the way you do things. And the last thing is that whether you have your board or you create some, other kind of committee to evaluate it frequently because things change, right?
Yeah.
So we have it that our board evaluates that policy. We were going to do it twice a year, but we just decided because things change so quickly to evaluate it quarterly.
Hmm.
Here's an example. So because I am working on developing more and more apps, I get the pre-release of iOS 18, which is the next upgrade to your iPhone. So sorry if you're an Android user in this conversation, but with iOS 18, it has a new feature where you can AI is built into the phone, and you can record the phone calls now. And just like Zoom, it'll tell you that it's recording. So it's, you can't secretly record somebody. But the beauty of recording the phone call is that it'll give you a transcript of the phone call, and AI will generate a summary of the phone call. Okay.
Hmm.
So something I want to add to our policy is that what I usually tell our staff, especially when it comes to like confrontational conversations, is to leave a paper trail. So in the past, what our staff would do is like if you had a confrontational conversation, you would have that phone call, whether it be FaceTime or Zoom or whatever, and then follow up with an email saying, "Hey," kind of summarizing the conversation and getting that person to agree with, "Yep, that's what we talked about." Because all of us have gone through hey, those moments where you had to say, "I didn't say that." Right?
Hmm.
And so you can't do that with an actual, physical phone call or a video call. But now with that, if you get permission to say, "Hey, you mind if I record this so I could summarize it?" You're leaving a paper trail, so that we could communicate with integrity and have follow-up information, right? So that's going to be something that we add to it. So that's why some of you might decide you're not going to reevaluate it that often, maybe just yearly or whatever. That's fine. But I think reevaluating nonetheless is highly imperative, as well as I don't expect anyone to um, go up on a service every Sunday and tell everybody what stuff was generated by AI, but to explain in your annual meeting. So we're just going to plan on in our annual meeting, we're going to tell people what we did with AI. So they're just aware and we're transparent with it, right? So yes, we
Hmm.
generated graphics. We generate graphics, not people. Another thing that we're experimenting with is that we use Claude. And I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but in our neck of the woods, people show up to church 1.4 times a month. Do you guys struggle with that?
And that's
Right.
definitely been a changing thing for sure for the last 10 years.
So for us, we're just trying to develop our own personal metric on how do we really gauge growth, because it's no longer as easy as just counting butts and seats. So we're experimenting. Everybody say experimenting, right? Acting like a preacher here. We're experimenting that what we do is we upload 5 lists. We upload list of givers for the month, for the whole month, givers for the month, people that are on volunteer teams for the month, people who have checked in their kids for that month, people that are in our discipleship process or pathway for that month, and anyone who's given themselves to the Lord or filled out a plug-in card for that month. Okay. So we upload those 5 lists, put it in Chat GPT. We have a prompt that says, okay, give us a list of any individual that are found in at least 2 of those lists. Um, Give us a list of the people that were found in at least 2 of those 5 lists, and the total number. So for us, we call that's our active member list, right? So now we're using, like, instead of just butts and seats, we're leveraging that number. So from month to month, we're saying, are we growing? Are we decreasing? And based on that 5 list, it's not a direct science, but that's how we're leveraging AI to trying to create a different metric on measuring things. Because think about it, like and we live in the Northeast and 15 minutes away from Philly. There's some people that they just honestly they can never make it to church on a Sunday. They work on Sunday, they travel, but they're in a discipleship group. They give, and they participate where they can in outreach events. Are they not a part of your church? Right. So that's something that we're wrestling with,
Hmm.
but we're leveraging AI to see if we could create a new metric for ourselves.
Yeah. No, brilliant. Brilliant. Hey, we're getting to the end of our time here. And I want to make sure that if anyone's got a question that they still wanted to ask, they'd have a chance to do that. And as those questions are being asked, just a um, uh, reminder again, what's the code for the pulpitai.com
It's
discount?
founder 20. I'll put this.
Okay. And that'll be in the slides that you send out.
Yeah.
Founder 20. And so you'll send us your policy, you send us your slides, you'll send us prompts for
Yep.
that as well. And let me just give you this prompt for those of you still on. We've got another webinar coming up next month with Josh Butler, who is right. He wrote a book on it's called Party Crasher. It's a great read on navigating politics. We're gonna interview. I'm going to interview Josh here in September 4th, and man, I just love what he's written on this topic, and I'm excited to have that conversation. So just heads up, that's coming up next month. Um, but I'm going to make sure that you are equipped in this next election season, because I know as a pastor heading into the next election season, it's like, oh boy, it's election year.
Yeah.
This is so tough, and I think Josh's conversation will be a help to us. I got a questions popped up there from Jeremy. Are there any type of copyright issues using AI generated content we should be mindful of?
I know that's something that's funky right now. That, like I said, if you're honest with what is AI generated, also the cool thing about if you're worried about copyright stuff, um, ChatGPT specifically, you could ask it what sources it's using, so that you could determine whether or not you're violating any copyright laws. Um, so when it comes to like text and language stuff, for images, I think I'm not a professional in this regard, but I think what I hear and the seminars that I've attended is that that's something that people are still wrestling with because obviously AI is using images or resemblance of images that are already online and so forth. And so they're trying to figure that out and wrestle with that. But as of right now, if you just, again, you're using it more as an assistant and it's not, you're still having a physical person, add the finishing touches graphically and that kind of stuff, I think you're clear.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Um, and again, that link for the next webinar is in the chat. Mike, thank you so much for all the time and effort you put into helping us know how to use AI and the different roles that we're in. I think that's super helpful. Is like whether it's just giving us some prompts to get a counseling conversation going. I mean, I know.
Yeah.
I remember doing my first funeral for it was a 9-year-old boy on my baseball team I coached, and just a freak accident. And I've got 200 people from the community coming to church, and
Mm,
man, I did not know where to start on how to prep a funeral.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm calling as many people as I can just to try and get their input, and just to have something to springboard from, to know how to yeah, how to even begin that conversation with your
Yeah.
community as they're coming to your church would have been so helpful.
Right.
Thanks for
Yeah.
some of those ideas,
Mm,
and because it just applies to all the different areas
yeah.
that we are engaged in. But I appreciate the way you've equipped us in this hour for so much of what we do. So I
No
appreciate it,
problem.
man.
Can you give me 30 seconds? There's one
I
quick little tip. If you got
do it.
30 seconds, quick little tip that I think will be really helpful for some of us because I just started using it last week. So like I said, this continues to evolve, right? I had the idea of saying, hey, can I make myself a tech support chat box, right? You ever have to call tech support for your soundboard at your church or something as silly as your printer or your thermostat, and you have to sit there for hours, wait to actually talk to somebody to get some help, right? Everybody's done that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the idea of saying, I'm going to create my own chat bot that helps me with specific things. Okay. So this is what I did. I went to Claude and we just got this brand new thermostat. We got this brand new thermostat, and I didn't. It's an older version of what we have. So I found the manual of that thermostat. I uploaded it to Claude, right? And then what I put in the Claude, I just said, "Hey, act as though you are a tech support agent for this thermostat. Okay. It has a whole entire manual. I click go. And then now it says, certainly, I'm willing to help you support. So then I didn't know how to change the schedule on the thermostat. So I said, I need help. If I can spell help, I need help creating a schedule for this next month, right? August, over here in September is even hotter than August, right? And I said, hey, can you give me step-by-step instructions on how to do that? And boom, it gave me step-by-step instructions, right? Now, what I do is on the top left-hand corner of Claude, it'll save your past chats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because it'll save your past chats, then I've actually shared this with other people on our staff. And now if ever there's a question on that thermostat, they're just going to go ask that chat bot that I've already created with the manual. And I've even tried it with our soundboard and everything like that. So imagine, if you will, you could have these things already set up on computers in your church, that if there's an issue or problem with a computer, soundboard, a thermostat, whatever machine, printer,
the alarm,
right?
you know.
You could just have a conversation with a custom chatbot that you created based on the manual that you uploaded.
That's awesome.
And then
yeah, super practical,
yeah,
super practical. So awesome, man. Hey, Mike, appreciate you again,
thanks
and
for having me.
again the time to do this. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be crossing paths before too long. But I know for us out here in Alliance Northwest, we're grateful for you and for the wisdom you're bringing to this topic. So bless you. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, you'll get
Yes,
stuff
thank you.
sent to you. Rachel, thank you so much for helping us today and getting this all set up. And everyone else, enjoy the rest of your time today. And may the Lord bless you. Take
See
care.
you guys. Thanks for having me.